before I tell you what happens. His exact words were, I have a sensei who taught me how to stand and hold my arm, and you can't move me. You can't move any part of my body when I hold this stance. This was the promise that I was told right before I asked him, are you sure? Like, I still hear it. I still hear it to this day. I can't get the sound out of my head. Aloha, brother. Aloha, sister. Welcome to Talk Story. And I am Matthew Salanoa. I am here to tell you a story. Talk Story. The fat man cometh. Aloha, welcome to Talk Story. I'm Matt Salanoa, and I got a little story for you. Today's story is the old classic tale of David and Goliath, but perhaps with the roles flipped. This is a story I like to call Move My Arm. Long ago, when I was God, I can't talk like that. A long time ago, when I was fresh from graduating from college, I was invited by a friend of a friend to help out on a little documentary shoot. We were going around interviewing filmmakers, and it was the friend of a friend and his girlfriend. You know what? It started off just fine. We all graduated from the same college. But I have to tell you, there were some red flags. This is one of those red flag kind of stories, okay? There were some red flags about this guy, and I should have known within the first 30 minutes of this ride that, we start off, he's driving. I don't really, I maybe just have gotten my license, but I'm still very insecure driving, which may have contributed to some of the red flags that came. Perhaps his own red flag for me. But either way, we start off the drive. It's fine. I'm joking. We're talking about movies we like. Everything's fine. And literally a half hour in, it gets quiet. It's that awkward silence when you've been laughing for 30 minutes and then you don't know what to say because, hey, there's a pause. And all of a sudden, he asks me, hey, Matt, you ever been in a fight? And I was like, no, not so far. And then he's like, I have. I've been in lots of fights, and I win them all. I even start fights, and I win those too. I go, okay, all right. So you never been in a fight, huh? No. Well, where I came from, you generally try not to get into fights. I'm just not telling him that I came from a school between two gang territories where if you try to fight with someone, you might get stabbed. So I'm just not saying that because I don't like thinking of high school and I don't want to think about seeing blood in the frickin' stairwell and stuff like that. But that was my point of view. Yeah, don't try to start stuff. That's what I grew up learning. This guy who I don't know, I still don't to this day know, where he came from or whatever. Maybe he told me, but maybe he was just from a different environment where that's what those people did. I don't know. But this really should have been the first red flag, because from that point on, everything he talked about, he was the best at, that he's always been the best at, that he always wins at. You cook? I cook all the time. I'm a great cook. I'm the best cook there is. I even start cooking sometimes, and I'm the best at that too. Like, okay, all right, Mr. Man. Everything he does, he's the best at. You know what I mean? And so, we're shooting, and look, you know what? I'm young, I'm dumb. I have some suggestions for this guy for how he should be approaching his interviews and stuff like that, because I've made documentaries since I was 15 years old. So I just had some opinions. I probably just shouldn't have shared them. But, I did realize over time, every time I made this guy kind of feel insecure, kind of took it out on his girlfriend. It's really not cool. It's really not cool. It's made the whole trip really uncomfortable. And then I would feel bad because I don't know what to say. I don't want to get in between. I'm I'm a non-confrontational guy, and I'll only put myself in that situation if I absolutely feel like I can do something about it. In this case, I'm like, I didn't intentionally start drama between you two, but it's like now I say something, clearly it festers, and then you take it out on your girl. That's not cool, man. And then on top of that, okay, here's where the move my arm story and the fighting all comes together. Okay, we're on the third day of shooting, and I think things are fine, even though there's the little red flags of, I make him insecure, he acts kind of weird with his girlfriend. There's little red flags like that, okay? And then one day, we've been through a couple interviews of different guys, different filmmakers who've been in the industry for a while, and actually things are going fun. We got some nice photos. It's really cool. And all of a sudden, it's we're halfway through this little trip, this little adventure, and we meet this cool guy. He says he trains with Jackie Chan. You look at him, he's buff, he's fit, he looks like a military type of dude. He's both served, but he also has studied mixed martial arts. He says he's trained with Jackie Chan. And, we get this cool interview. And look, this is the Friend of a Friend's documentary. I'm just there to be the camera guy, and then at the time promised to be the editor. But let's just say this part of the story is where I realized that's not what I wanted to do. We get through a great interview with this guy. This dude is talking about how he worked with Jackie Chan, how he had a sensei who taught him this move that if someone tried to attack them with a fist or with a knife, that he could just grab them by the hand, twist their hand, and turn them into a human shield that he could control by twisting their wrist. And I thought, what a cool story. Like, he actually had a story of being in Indonesia where he's into the marketplace, it's just out in the open, and all of a sudden this like gang of 5 guys with blades come out and they start trying to rob people. And finally they reach him, and 2 guys come at him with their knives, and he doesn't want to give them anything, so they try to attack him, and then he grabs both of their hands, twists them, turns them both into these human shields, and then as their 3 friends are trying to attack and get their friends free, he's like holding them and using them as a human shield and like dancing them around like little puppets. And then all of a sudden the cops finally show up, and so he shoves the 2 guys that he has as human shields into their friends, scales the fence, and gets the hell out of there. And that was just such a great, cool story. I mean, this was like the highlight of all the interviews. It was an overall good experience when we were shooting. It was just when we were not shooting that it became awkward. I mean, okay, even before I get to this move my arm story, okay, there's the night before this interview, we're all getting chicken. And granted, I'm broke as a joke, so these guys are paying for things. But the 3 of us are splitting this, nice, pre-cooked chicken from Safeway or Stater, whatever we got it from. And his girlfriend gets a few slices, puts it on her plate, and goes. And I just let him go. Look, of course, you guys paid for it. I'm not going to try and get ahead of you. And this dude sticks his entire hand into the chicken, pulling off like most of it anyway. But and I know it's a dirty hand. I know he has not washed that dang thing yet because we've been driving around shooting. And, he just sticks his entire hand, gets a massive clump of chicken, and then just walks away eating it right out of his hand. I'm like, and what's left for me to grab that you haven't touched, man? Like, that's real gross, dude. So, this is just the night before. Again, another red flag. Like, you get into fights. I get into fights and I win them. I start fights and I win those too. It's like, okay, dude. Okay, whatever you say. And so, anyway, that being in mind, we're interviewing the guy. He's just talked about how he threw the 2 Indonesian, robbers with knives into their friends and gets away from the cops. Because he's like, you don't want to deal with the cops. You don't want to get thrown into some prison in another country, especially like he's just defending himself. Like, yeah, you want to get out of there. But it's such a cool interview. It's the highlight of all the interviews. And then the guy leaves, and we're all just on the mirth of what a fun time that was. And all of a sudden, we're going to call him Goliath, okay? All of a sudden, I win every fight, Mr. Goliath, turns and looks at me and says, I have a sensei too. And he also taught me something very cool. You want to know what it is? I go, sure. What did your sensei teach you? He taught me how I could keep my arms still and nobody can move me. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, man. I'm just taking his word for it. That's fine. You know what I mean? And then he goes, you want to try? You want to try it out? And I go, sure. Okay, let's try. You know what I mean? And then, so he gets in his little stance, with his feet the perfect way apart. So he's controlling his core. Okay? He's controlling his core. He's in the perfect stance. I can tell he's possibly done this before. And he puts his arm right in front of him. Okay? Puts his arm right in front of him, like this. And he says, move my arm. And I go, okay. And then I step up to him. Now I am about 5'11". The guy I'm talking about, his head reaches my little nipplies here. Okay? That's like, I step up to him. His head is here, bro. Okay? His head is here. Now, for you heightist people, or you people who are insecure about your height, I'm not trying to make fun of him for being a shorter guy. I'm just trying to explain what the visual looks like. Literally a David and Goliath visual, except I physically look like the Goliath, but you're about to figure out which one of us is David. Okay? Move my arm. And as I step up to him, I just get this little inkling in my head, and I ask him, are you sure? You know what I mean? And he goes, yeah, man, move my arm. And so I go, okay. And I take him by the arm, because let me remind you here, before I tell you what happens. His exact words were, I have a sensei who taught me how to stand and hold my arm, and you can't move me. You can't move any part of my body when I hold this stance. This was the promise that I was told right before I asked him, are you sure? Yeah, man, move my arm. Okay. So I placed my hand on his arm, and this is what happens. Let me be clear to you. What may have only been 5 seconds felt like an excruciating 35 seconds of me moving his entire torso with his arm, and I could literally see his legs straining the whole time. So, instant replay. Are you sure? Move my arm. It's so impressive. He was keeping such a straight face, but you could tell he was so strained. And I put him right back where he started. And you know what this young gentleman says to me? Stuck there, frozen in the moment of revelation, he looks at me with a straight face and says, but did you notice my body didn't move? And you know what? I said, yeah. I said, yeah. Yeah, I noticed that your body didn't move. But again, just one more time for clarification. Instant replay. Move my arm. Are you sure? Move my arm, dude. All right? I feel like Dan Aykroyd. That was a full form vaporous apparition. Except in this case, no, that was full torso movement with leg strain. Oh my God. You know, that was full torso movement with leg strain and audible struggling. Okay, I mean, this guy was crying on the inside. And then he has the nerve to ask me if his torso didn't move. Are you serious? I'm starting to not believe you about these fights, man. I was just taking your word for it because I'm young and dumb, but now I'm just not believing you. And you know what? It was real awkward after that moment. Because again, this had been 3 days of this dude talking like this. And granted, maybe I had too many suggestions for how the shoot should go because I have experience and this is like his first documentary. Maybe I had too many suggestions. I was trying to be nice about it. I wasn't trying to be forceful, but I could understand like he kind of took it personally with a lot of insecurity. And I realized in retrospect, I should just said nothing. Like you're here to help, just be helpful. You know what I mean? And clearly making suggestions is not helpful for this guy. I literally said, "Are you sure?" "Yeah, move my arm." You know what I mean? So wow. Yeah, you know, there's a genuine David and Goliath story, except the roles in this case were flipped. Like I still hear it. I still hear it to this day. I can't get the sound on my head. It's just like, wow, wow, little man, okay, you know, and like here I am. He's got a girlfriend. I don't. He has all these great stories of that are cool and romantic and and all these very sweet things. Like I'm the best boyfriend ever. I do everything best. Yeah, he's so wonderful. You know what I mean? It's just oh my God. It's just he's good at everything. And that was at the point where I realized I will not make any more suggestions to this man. I will just help him out as I should have done in the first place by keeping my mouth shut. And yeah, so I did not edit that for him. It really was a situation that just got worse over the course of that shoot. But what can we learn from this? Okay, this is my story. This is Talk Story, and a story isn't just a story because it's funny. I hope you found that part funny. But what can we learn from this? It's like, look, young men, you do not have to prove yourself. Okay, I mean, you do have to prove yourself, but you don't have to prove yourself to every single person you cross paths with. Okay, all right. I knew that. I knew as an artist, you speak through your art. Okay, you speak through your art. And there was this one moment when we were talking to one particular filmmaker where he had a bunch of awards on his shelf, and we all got a chance to hold the awards, and I didn't really care. I mean, it was impressive. I'm impressed with this guy, but when I saw this guy, when I saw this friend of a friend, we're calling him Goliath, and he takes a photo with the filmmaker, and he's holding that statue in his hand. I could see in that one photo, like this guy wants so badly success and recognition. Like I could just tell. Because I knew for me personally, I never really cared. Despite years of making things, I never actually even bothered to submit to film festivals, which I realized in retrospect is a mistake. Like, how are you supposed to get out there and get work? You do have to show people things. You do have to get out there and meet people, network, all that stuff. I just wasn't good at that. I'm just not a social person. I'm not good at it, obviously. I cut right through bullshit wherever I go. You know what I mean? But also, and I too have made mistakes where I tried to show strength to people who are also friends. It's like you're trying to show strength to someone who's already someone that you care about. But because the truth be told, this is a friend or a friend of a friend. So you're only doing it because you feel safe enough to attempt to do this to someone who you don't think is going to hurt you or think badly about you. That's the real truth of the matter. And in times where I tried to say tough things to people, I regretted it right away. I had times where I thought someone was being mean to my sister, and actually it was just a misunderstanding. And I say all this stuff online, all this tough talk, and I realized as soon as I hit the send button, I'm like, I don't mean this. I would never want to hurt this person or dominate them in any particular kind of way. I just want them to stop disrespecting my sister. That's all. And this causes rifts and makes people not want to be around you or deal with you because, again, especially when you realize this is a misunderstanding. They weren't actually trying to hurt my sister or say something disrespectful to a friend. They weren't trying to do that, even though that's how it came off. And then, if I had just had the clarity of mind and realized that real strength is not trying to intimidate everyone around you. And I'm sorry, especially if you're a little dude who barely reaches my nipples, I am not intimidated by you. And maybe that's why you were intimidated by me and felt the need to pull all this bullshit about how you win fights and all this stuff. Because I don't know. Look, when I walk around, and especially these days, I'm a gargantuan fat beach ball with legs, okay? When I walk around, I am trapped in my own head with all my insecurities. I don't like how I look. And especially in those days when I was young, I didn't realize I had extreme body dysmorphia. As fat as I am today, over 300 pounds, as a 20-something-year-old with barely a belly, I was 1X, okay? I was 1X. With barely a belly, I had body dysmorphia, and I thought I was as fat as I am today. Okay, I really had a complete wrong opinion of myself, but I was walking around with this insecurity, like I'm this gross, disgusting pig. And I look at pictures, I'm like, what was I insecure about? Just, man, girls were attracted to you. You just were too insecure to go to the next level. But again, that's kind of at the root of this story. There's a lot of insecurity. And I was secure enough to at least admit, look, I haven't been in a fight and I haven't, been with many women or been very good at dating. I could securely admit my insecurities. But, here this guy was who's too insecure to admit whatever his insecurity is. And I know that because I've realized over time, it doesn't matter that I was so insecure on the inside and literally thought of myself as ugly. On the outside, to other people, when they look at me, and especially because I don't know that my smiling face is this. Okay, I didn't realize that was what my smiling face looked like to people. I don't want to talk to that guy either. He looks like a homeless, creepy guy. In my head, I'm smiling. This is what I look like. Okay, I had a lot of experiences just walking around San Francisco, the melting pot of the meeting of cultures and races. I had a lot of experiences where, because I didn't care how I looked, because I believed I was this fat, disgusting pig, I dressed in holy clothes, I looked like I was homeless. And there were so many people that would look at me with kind of an instant fear and avoid me because they thought I looked like some homeless guy who was going to rob them or something. And it was just because I was not dressed very well. There's a reason, I realize now in my mid going toward late 30s, there's a reason that in the old days, people dressed nicely. They would wear suits or they would at least some kind of business casual look, even at a young age, in what you would call your Sunday best. There was a reason they did that. And that's because when you see someone who's dressed well, everyone has assumptions. Everyone has assumptions. But when you see someone who's dressed well, and especially when they're a young person, you automatically assume this person is comfortable with themselves. They have a sense of what they're doing with their lives because they just already look like they're ready to go out and get a job or meet their friends' parents. They just look like they're ready to go out into the world and be in situations where they should be respected because they clearly respect their own appearance. And that's just something, when I was growing up, because I was misled by the lies of society. It doesn't matter how you look. Don't judge a book by its cover. Everyone judges the book by its cover. Everybody does. And I think that's part of the problems. I know society, we have still issues of racism, all this stuff, classism, all these things. But truth be told, you look at someone who's dressed like a bum, even if it's just a hoodie, you're automatically filled with all the assumptions that come with it. Because it's not even about that person. It's about how many people you have seen that are actual bums who scare the shit out of you because they're walking around with their carts and they're grizzly and they're also in a hoodie and they look scary. They've ran into 600 of those people before they met you. And so they can't help but have that be their automatic opinion of you. And so this was the problem that I encountered, even though I didn't think that was going to be a problem when I got in the car with these people. That was the problem I encountered, where so many people who I would just cross on the street, even little old ladies, just look at me like, oh my God. Like, they look at me, hold their purse, walk away, avoid me, because they look at me and they think I'm going to be some kind of trouble. And the truth be told, it's just because I didn't realize that this was my smiling face. I'm smiling, can't you tell? I'm happy to be outside and walk around, can't you tell? No, I had what you call resting motherfucker face, okay? I have resting, I might kill you, stab you face. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I'm just insecure. Like, the reality of my face is I'm insecure with how I look because I'm not dressing well, even though I've been told by my parents to dress better than this. Because yes, people make assumptions, and it's totally true. And so I realize in retrospect, when I got in the back of this car and I'm this 5'11" guy, and everyone, and this goes back to the first girlfriend I ever had, everyone that sees me, they automatically assume, because even though I'm a nerd, I'm a closeted nerd. I don't wear nerdy t-shirts. I don't talk about nerdy stuff unless I meet another nerd. So, when they see me and I'm wearing a holy shirt, but I kind of look okay, but at the same time, I look like a kind of meathead. I look like some kind of mean, football-loving guy who will, do something fucked up to you. It's just my natural look at that time. Now I've practiced my resting, peaceful guy face. And I just instinctually, I just pass pedestrians. If we cross eyes, I just try to nod, and I'm a friendly guy. I'm a friendly guy. And that's the energy I try to put out, because I'm just like, I hate having this years of people looking at me like that. But this is the situation that really taught me, like, okay, like, this guy felt threatened by me for a reason. And he was threatened by me, even though we started out that car ride and I was making jokes the entire time. And we're just talking about movies, and I'm not making a move on his girlfriend or anything, but we just automatically get along. Like, his girlfriend and I just got along like buddies, instantly. And she was very sweet. She was very nice. And she was doing the makeup for him for all of his interviews, because he was in the video interview. She was very sweet, very nice, and we just had a lot of interests in common. Not 100% in common, but just enough to spark really fun conversations. And maybe it just wasn't stuff that he was interested in as much. He was more of a gym guy, and that's what he was interested in. We would go to the gym with him and a friend, and it would just be awkward because we're like, we just want to talk. We don't really want to do this, And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be here. And we would just go back to talking about how reality is a turtle on top of a turtle. You know what I mean? It's just like, I wouldn't say dumb conversation, but it's just like, it's light intellectual, not even really. We're just talking about what is reality for the sake of it, because it interests us. You know what I mean? But I realized, like, I look like this intimidating guy who could potentially kick his ass. And that's just my appearance. That's not how I'm acting toward him. But I'm imagining that must be what it looks like. I look like a guy who could whoop on him. And who knows, maybe, he's a shorter guy. Maybe there was a guy who looked like me who treated him like that. And this was like an instant trigger for him. And then, when I'm getting along with his girlfriend, even though we're just getting along, I'm not hitting on her. I'm not saying, oh, you're so pretty, even though, hey, she's beautiful and all this stuff. I'm not behaving in any of those ways. I know I've already been in a situation where I was with a girl who had a boyfriend, and I'm not telling this to them, but that's what's going on in my head. Like, look, I already did that. I feel guilty about that to this day. I feel guilty about that, and that's a story for another pod, maybe the next one. But I just, I knew, like, don't do that. Like, yeah, I know she's fun and she's pretty, but like, I know I'm sitting in this car. She's your girlfriend. I'm here to help. I'm not trying to do anything like that. But we just got along naturally, and that's all that happened. You know what I mean? And I couldn't help that she was easier to talk to than Mr. I'm good at everything under the sun, except for standing still and not having you move my arm. But for the rest of my life, I have that sound in my ears. So thank you, Mr. Goliath. You know what I mean? But all this happened because of insecurity. Like the move my arm incident wouldn't even had to happen if he wasn't so insecure and felt this. And what I take it as, he had an automatic need. And granted, look, I said I was making suggestions on how he should do things, because I was using my experience. I was like, from my experience, like, I think you should have a little bit more deeper questions. You should do your homework on the people you're interviewing, because he didn't. And I don't even know how he got these people's contact if he doesn't know who they are. You know what I mean? And so I would just do some light Googling on my phone and be like, hey, look at these things these people done. You should ask them about these things if you've seen any of it, if any of it interests you. And you know what? When they took those suggestions, the interviews were more fun. And that's all I was trying to say, is like, I'm not trying to take over your project here. It's just that you're not referring to anything that they've done. So we're not getting much out of these interviews, Having done this for so long, I know that you need to get something out of the person. You got to get their story, or at least have them talk about some specific projects, especially if you've seen it. Because then that shows them that you're engaged and that you're interested in what they're doing, because that's the whole reason we're talking to them, right? And that's all I was getting at. And in my head, I thought I was doing it in a nice enough way. But again, maybe I wasn't. Maybe I did come off a little too imposing. And again, I already look, as I realize in retrospect, I already look imposing. I already sound imposing when I care about something. But I wasn't in my head trying to be imposing. I just wanted to help, because that's what I was there to do, was help. But seriously, after the move my arm incident, and there was other things that this couple was doing, because we were staying at a friend's place. They were a bit messy. I would clean up after them in the first few days, and it was just like, and to me, like, I grew up with my family. We visited my grandma's house all the time. And so when we visited my grandma's house, and I slept on the couch or on the floor on the little unfoldable bed, what we had to do every single time we woke up, as soon as we knew we weren't going to sleep anymore, as soon as you woke up, you fold your blanket, you fold your unfoldable bed, or if you were sleeping on the couch, you just fold your blanket, you just put it to the side somewhere that's out of the way, so that this living room, because we would sleep in the living room, becomes a living room again. And when the rest of the family wakes up and they want to sit down and watch some TV, they can do that freely. Like, it was a very, like, this is Hawaiian family. It was very thoughtful. Like, you care about your family. When you're visiting family or friends, this is how you act. You clean up after yourself. You don't make a big mess when you're a guest in someone else's home. And so this was something that they were also doing. And I don't really blame the girls so much as I blame Mr. Goliath. It was just like, I would wake up, fold my blanket, make my space very neat, so that anyone coming in, just, they can sit down and it's a couch again. And with them, like, their stuff would be sprawled out across the entire living room. I would wake up first, because I was just always an early waker. I sleep late and I wake up early. But then I would see the friends that we were living at trying to walk around all their stuff, and I would just be like, and they would just leave it. They would just leave it like that. And so the first 3 days, I would I didn't want to touch their stuff, but I just felt guilty. I was like, after the first day, letting them leave it like that, it wasn't even that bad. But day 2 and day 3, it was just everywhere. I was like, man, this is really rude, So I would just kind of scoot it to the side, and they can organize it how they want. And I know that was invasive for them, but I just had this automatic thing from growing up with my family. Like, this is not how you act when you're a guest in someone else's home. And just like the chicken thing, or have you been in fights, it was like, there's all these very obvious red flags that this guy was kind of a mess, and he was insecure about himself, and he felt the need to prove himself to a guy that he assumed was a bully. You know what I mean? He looked at me, assessed me. I'm a bully. I'm a bad guy. And I must be trying to hit on his girlfriend and steal his girlfriend from him. But let me tell you a lesson that I can't tell you why I know it. Typically, when a guy who has a beautiful girlfriend, already you're insecure because she's beautiful, and everyone is going to be attracted to her. But typically, when a guy is that insecure about whether his girlfriend will leave him or cheat on him because she's getting along with another guy, typically that speaks entirely to the character of the guy. You know what I mean? Meaning either A, he's cheated on her already, or he's looking around and he shouldn't be looking around, or, and most importantly, he's just so insecure about keeping the relationship because because he doesn't like all the same things. He doesn't want to talk about the nature of reality and are we real. But that's fine, you know what I mean? Like that, she's not dating you for that reason. She's not dating you, obviously. Like you have all these very sweet stories where you've romanced her. She's dating you because she likes you. And then when I'm talking to her, I'm literally not trying to hit on her. I'm not even saying she's cute or pretty or whatever. Those things speak for themselves. And I see you in your relationship. That's your job to do. I'm not here to do that. So, that's, although, yeah, yes, on Instagram, here and there, I might leave a "you're so beautiful" comment on some actress's page. I just can't help myself. I know most of them have somebody, but if I know you in person, if I meet you in person, I know not to behave like that. And I wish I need to put that on the internet too. But really, it's just like, look, and again, what they don't know is I've already done this before and I feel terrible about it. And I've promised myself I would never do that again. So here I am. I was doing my best to be respectful. And yet his insecurity about his relationship was so strong that he felt the need to let me know that he wins fights, that he wins every fight, even the ones he starts, which is it's a red flag. If you're going around starting fights that you win, it's like, obviously there's something that you got to deal with, dude. Like, you got to grow up. That's not the right way to live your life. You're just going to get yourself in some kind of trouble that's inescapable. You know what I mean? That's not the way to live your life, man. And I grew up knowing what violence is and promising that I would not participate in it. At least not unless it was absolutely necessary. And that's just what I grew up with. Again, never mind the experiences I'm not talking about, but going to a high school where if you started something with someone, you could get stabbed and die that day. Okay, like that was a reality for 4 years of my life. So, going to a college with a bunch of, white people. I know, but I'm also Hawaiian, okay? I know I know what you're thinking, but I'm also Hawaiian. That's why I'm wearing this. And I'm shirtless because I'm being vulnerable with you. Don't be insecure about me being vulnerable with you, okay? But really, and it's not rainbow colored for any reason. It's just, I got this lei from a Hawaiian family that I became friends with through my best friend. And so, since it's the only lei I have, I'm like, dude, well, I'm going to wear this to represent, But it's not rainbow for any particular reason. Like, I'm not coming out, at least not in this episode. I'm coming out of the nerd closet, though. Do you like my toys? But seriously, so the real point of this story is not move my arm, although I do think personally it's a funny story. And I still hear it. I mean, you could tell he was just so earth-shatteringly embarrassed with himself. And I just couldn't bring myself to say, when he asked me, did you notice how my body didn't move? I just couldn't bring myself to say the truth at that point, because it was clear to me that he is so beyond whatever reality is. Yeah, I noticed that your body didn't move. You mean when your entire torso shook counterclockwise, and then I put you exactly in the spot you started in after you were internally screaming like you were dying? Yeah, I didn't notice your body move or that your legs were shaking like a little dog. I didn't notice any of that stuff, okay? I didn't, okay? Just for you, I didn't notice those things because I realized this was an embarrassing little box you put yourself in, little guy. Okay, all right? And, seriously, like, fuck, dude, you didn't need to do any of that, I mean, I was impressed with you, and here's what you don't know, because I know what you did after that shoot when I didn't edit for you. I know what you did and what you said to people that we both know. I know what you said about me, okay? We both know what you said about me, and why that particular lunch with everyone was so awkward. I know, okay? But I know that you looked at me and you thought I was just this intimidating beast of a guy. and you needed to prove something to me to make sure that I knew that you were the top dog and this was your girlfriend and this is your project and you're the man. And you know what? I was already impressed with you with the fact that you were making the documentary. The fact that you were a friend of my friend, who I considered a very close and dear friend at that point, which is the reason I trusted you enough to get in your car and go on this adventure with you. Because you were a friend of my friend. If my friend loves you so much, he puts you in his projects, and he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And you're making a documentary where you're going around and meeting real filmmakers, I'm already impressed with you. You don't even need to flex. I'm not doing anything right. I'm helping you out because I'm not doing anything at the moment. So I'm already impressed with you. And when I'm giving you suggestions, and I'm sorry if I came off wrong, okay? I didn't mean to. If I'm giving you suggestions, it's just because I have experience in making documentaries and I just want to see you succeed. And this is something I did not have a problem with our mutual friend, but clearly it was an issue for you, okay? But seriously, you did not need to impress me or impress upon me what a man you are or all this stuff that came out of you. You didn't need to be mad at your girlfriend because she got along with me. You didn't need to do any of that. All these behaviors that came out of you out of pure insecurity, it wasn't necessary at all. Because I was already impressed with you by the fact that you're a friend of a friend that I found dear to my heart and respected because he was a successful professional, and that we both know him. And if he loves you, then I respect you automatically. And if you're doing this documentary where you're meeting real filmmakers, I'm already impressed with you. And you have this girlfriend who beauty aside, she's beautiful, but she's a very good makeup artist and she's very friendly, and you guys do seem to make a good team. I'm already impressed with you. I'm already impressed with you, okay? I know I come off intense and I do have a very high standard, but that standard is what has allowed me to keep clients and work with people when I don't screw it up, What makes me work with people over and over again is that they see the quality of my work because I have a high standard for myself. I'm not okay with just being proud because I stepped my foot into something. I'm okay when I've done the absolute best that I can do. And the people that I work with continually over and over again over years, they come back to me because I achieve that standard for them and help them tell their stories as best as possible. And that's just all I wanted to offer to you. Is look, I'm not the one going out meeting these people. You are. I just want you to have the best possible professional experience that you can, since you've never made a documentary before. That's it. And again, I'm already impressed with you because you're doing it. You know what I mean? That's the truth that I couldn't say at the time because, if the reason I said thank you a lot. I said thank you a lot for the experience. Thank you for the positive parts of the experience, but not thank you for the behavior that you displayed over the course of that adventure. It was really inappropriate how you acted. But just if you find yourself stumbling upon this video, don't even be embarrassed about the move of your arm, okay? I am a host of embarrassments. I made that clear when we hung out. I'm an idiot, okay? I know about movies, but I don't know how to socialize. I don't know how to be with people. But I was impressed with you just for the fact of what you were doing. And just so you know, you didn't have to impress me. You didn't have to intimidate me. It was completely unnecessary. I did respect your relationship. I just happened to get along with your girlfriend, and that's all. At no point, did I imagine anything happening or did I want anything to happen. All I wanted was for you to have the best project possible. Okay, and that was it on my side, okay? So it's just something, I say this because, like I said, I had my own instances where I tried to flex and tried to let people know that they would be in check. and then immediately regretted it because I realized I'm an idiot. I've never even been in a fight. It doesn't matter that I moved that guy's arm. It's like, that doesn't mean I know how to be in a fight. But I do know that people, when people see me, they don't, the idiots who would start fights with people to prove themselves don't mess with me because they know, at the very least, the way I walk and the way I look, I am intimidating. And chances are, and people have tried to do little screaming matches with me, people who are taller than me and bigger than me. They try to do little screaming matches with me and have found out that I can scream back real good. I can scream back real good. And maybe I'm not the guy you want to intimidate today. Because anyone who could actually whoop my ass is typically smart enough to know that's not a good idea. Not because I would win, but just because I look like someone who might not be bothered with a little challenge. And that's not someone you want to fuck with, okay? That's not someone you want to fuck with. I'm not saying I could win a fight. I'd probably still lose a fight. But it also means I'm willing to stand up for myself. And the people, and this is something that's interesting, because this is a sidebar to a sidebar to a sidebar. There's this woman, she was former Secret Service, and she's got a book that I do want to pick up and read at some point called Becoming Bulletproof, where she talks about her experiences of rising in the ranks of the Secret Service. And she talks about, how to deal with people, how to deal with confrontation. And I really liked what she had to say, where she said there was a study, I think it was in New York. There was a study where they brought regular footage of people walking around the city, and they showed it to criminals and said, who would you attack? Who would you try to steal from? And all of them agreed that they would attack the people that were weak and more vulnerable than them, And I've seen that in person. There was another situation with a friend of someone I knew who tried to start a fight, and did, with who I call my nerd brother. And he made this big show of taking off his shirt, challenging him in the middle of the street in front of my house. But the problem is that he had suckered me into thinking that this was actually a mutual problem, that somehow this guy I've known much longer has been behaving strangely. And I admitted, hey, he's been acting a little weird lately, but I just didn't understand what the situation was. And there's a larger truth to this situation. But he goes and he starts this fight. But I do try to intervene. I do block them like a referee for a good 5 minutes before just letting them fight, because I can't really do anything. It's not my fight. But, I realized in retrospect, he started a fight with my friend because my friend called him out on some genuinely inappropriate behavior. But not only that, this dude's a tall dude. He's got dreadlocks. He looks tough. But it was all for show, because the person he decided to pick a fight with, my friend, is short. He does walk around like a dork. You know what I mean? He doesn't walk around like a guy that. But of course, it was actually an even match. It was the most pathetic fight I'd ever seen. I was like, this looks like two girls slapping each other. This is pathetic for this giant guy to make such a big show of himself, and he just looks like a fucking idiot. But this is what I thought when I thought of what Evie said. Evie Pomporis, I think that's how to say her name, because she said, like, the predators and the criminals, they attack people who look like easy prey. And you know what I mean? That just goes far to show you, like, wow, this guy isn't really much to deal with. And I know if that is how you fight, God, no wonder you picked a fight with my friend and not with me. No wonder. Because also, I'm fat already, so I fall on you, you're gonna break a hip. You'll break a hip first, okay? If I fall, I'm just so fat. I'll make the fun of myself. I'm so fat. If the fight goes wrong and I fall on you, something's gonna break on you before it breaks on me, because I am so fucking fat, dude. But also, I don't walk like my friend. I walk with purpose. I walk like I know where I'm doing, and I'm watching out for whatever crooks or weirdos are walking around, because I know. Growing up, going to these schools, and especially my high school, where you get stabbed if you look at someone the wrong way. You know what I mean? I'm like, look, I ain't walking around to get stabbed. I'm walking around to do what I got to do. And if that by itself intimidates little wimps who need to start fights just to prove something to themselves, then good. Be intimidated. You should. You should be so intimidated. You put that knife down and you don't fucking act like that, because that's a pathetic way to act. Again, this is a message for you young men out there. You don't need to prove yourself that way. Okay? You don't need to do it. Let me tell you one more story. Okay? So there's a story I know. Someone working at, I don't know, some grocery store in San Francisco. They were leaving their shift, and there was a security guard outside. And I think they were across the street. I can't remember the details, but essentially there was 3 Latin kids trying to provoke the security guard into a fight. And the security guard wasn't having it. He's just like, be cool, man. We don't need to do nothing, okay? And these 3 Latin teenagers just kept egging him on and egging him on. And finally they said something that made the security guard just move at them. And that's when one of them pulled out a knife and stabbed the security guard in the stomach. And this person who left their shift was there trying to stop the blood from leaving this security guard's body. It's horrible. You know, and then later on, the cops did catch these 3 kids. And when they were caught and arrested, they were crying their eyes out. You know, all this tough machismo, and you stab a guy and you ran away. Why'd you run away? Because you knew you were going to stab that guy. But why did you need to instigate him before you stabbed him? Because you needed to look like it was a fight, for you to feel like it was okay for you to stab them, right? Because I was so tough. I stood up against a big guy and I got him where he deserved it. And there you are on the steps of some building getting arrested by the cops. And your ass is going to jail for attempted murder now. And you're crying your eyes out, wishing your mom was there. Now, I'm not saying that that's what they said, but I can tell that's what they were thinking. Why didn't I stay home with mom? Or shit, if I had a mom, who knows what their deal was. 3 Latin kids, right? You know, these are probably the same kids who probably went to my high school or something, or one of the adjacent high schools, because there was 3 or 4 high schools in the area, or 3 or 4 schools period in the area where this gang violence was happening, right? And, you know, who knows how they got into this situation. Maybe they weren't even gangsters. Maybe they were just 3 Latin kids trying to act tough. But just like Move My Arm guy, they found out that reality is not like a movie. Just like the guy who tried to fight my friend, and dude, it was a pathetic ass fight. Okay, it was just sad to watch. You know what I mean? I was just like, really, you are tall and you're picking a guy who's half your size, and that's supposed to prove what a tough guy you are. Pathetic as fuck. Okay, and then these 3 Latin guys trying to stir up a fight with a bigger guy. You know what I mean? You see everyone's insecurity, right? Everyone's insecurity is blatantly obvious. It's that these young men, whether it's Move My Arm or Stabby or fucking tall vegan idiot guy, because he was vegan, you know, you see the insecurity that this person for some reason thinks that the way to show that they're a man is to impose upon someone else and to take them out in some kind of impressive way. And granted, it is in movies, and it is in gangster culture when you hear it in the music. But you know what? You got all you young men, especially if you're listening to the gangster rap music, I want you to ask yourself, what are these gangsters doing when they're famous and they got money? Are they still running on the street trying to stab people? No. They're chilling out in their homes, living a peaceful life, raising a family. And they're all talking about how people shouldn't be living that kind of life. So you should really look at the full spectrum of what happens in someone's life story before you try to end someone's life, or before you try to end someone's day with a beating. Because when your ass is in jail for attempted murder and you're crying your eyeballs out because now you know you're the pretty face or someone's going to stick something in your mouth later, okay? Then you're going to realize what real intimidation actually looks like. Young men, you don't need to impress anybody with how strong and scary you are. Unless you are living in an environment where for some reason you got to do that, okay, then you got to do it. But only if you got to do it. If you don't got to do it, then stay the hell away. If you have a choice, if you legitimately have a choice, then choose peace. People call you a pussy, they call you scared, they call you a wimp. Let them think what they think. Because when they're in jail, they're going to realize, holy crap, I can't walk around anymore. You know what I mean? I got to live this life now. So just think about that. Just think about that. You got your whole life ahead of you. You don't need to impress anybody. What you need to do is impress yourself. Dress nicely. Be respectful to other people. Don't start fights. There's that famous Johnny Cash song. I don't know if it's cover or not, but the song is, son, don't bring your guns to town. And what happens in that song? The son brings his guns to town, gets in a duel with a guy, and he gets shot and killed because he wants to impress people. And that's not the reason you should be toting a gun. You should be toting a gun purely for self-defense if you have to have one. Okay, purely for self-defense. You shouldn't be going out trying to start fights with people. Because as Move My Arm proves, you're going to find out what your actual strength is when you try to test someone who can actually do something against you. And in the case of the security guard, he got stabbed, he fell down, but then the cops got you, right? Now you got a regret. So don't live in regret. Okay, I have many, many regrets. Luckily, most of them had to have nothing to do with violence. But I have many, many regrets. And what I'm trying to do is turn my life into a life where I don't have regrets. Which is part of why I'm sharing these little stories with you. It's like, you don't gotta impress people, young people. Especially you young men. You don't have to impress nobody, except try to impress yourself. Dress nicely, be respectful to others. That's the way to live. Okay? It might sound like it's not attractive, but you'll realize when people automatically look at you with respect because you dress and behave with self-respect. And that's the other thing young people, a lot of them don't understand, especially because when you're a kid and you can speak, it becomes exciting to be saying bad things that you're not allowed to say. It's just excitement, it's just fun. But then it goes too far when you start to turn that fun into a philosophy. But being respectful to others is self-respect. Being respectful to others and treating them how you would like to be treated with respect, that is self-respect. Dressing nicely. Okay? Look, you're broke. The only thing you can afford is at Ross or Burlington Coat Factory. Hey, well, look at my life, okay? All these toys is when I had a job. I've been unemployed for a year, man. But even when I was employed, I still shop at Ross or Burlington Coat Factory where it's affordable. If you can afford a $10, $15, $16 hoodie, if you can afford some Jordans, then you can go into the same place and buy a nice t-shirt, a nice button-up shirt. It doesn't have to be long sleeve. If you're like me, you're fat, or you just get hot easy, you know what I mean? You're hot-blooded. Get a short sleeve button-up, man. Get a nice short sleeve button-up. Dress with respect. Dress with the way you would like to be treated. And then exemplify that treatment to others. You know what I mean? Someone tries to start something with you, you don't need to get involved at all. Just, just keep walking. And if they follow you and then they start something, then defend yourself. Don't be afraid to protect yourself. But you're not going to protect yourself by starting things with other people. All that is a big red flag that this is something that this is someone I don't want to deal with. And not in the kind of I'm intimidated kind of way of like, this is an idiot. This is obviously an idiot. Okay? You know what I mean? Yeah, Jesus, this is an idiot. It's a dumbass. You know what I mean? You can't help it. He's a guy. It's like half of our DNA is stupid. But seriously, like, dress with self-respect. Address others with respect to them because you respect yourself. Okay? That's how it works. That's how it works. And if someone disrespects you, it's not a sign that you're not doing things right. It's a sign that they're not doing things right. And you got to let that go. It's like the rain. You just let it go. They're acting a fool. They ain't acting right. No one needs to learn the hard way, okay? Learn the easy way. Just take good advice when you hear it, okay? When you hear good advice, don't run with those people. They're nothing but trouble. When you hear good advice, don't walk around with a knife, son. Don't walk around with a gun. When you hear good advice, take it. Dress nicely. Behave respectfully. And the world will naturally want to open up for you. Because the older you get, the less room there is for bullshit. Because old people already know the things I'm saying. Look at this gray beard, okay? This ain't gray because I don't know. I haven't been through these things. Look at this, all this gray in here. That's not the shine of the light. That is gray hair. All right? So I've seen things and, things you can't unsee. That's how I earned this gray. But I've also learned both the easy way and the hard way. Like, you don't have to impress anybody. What you need to do is impress yourself. And impress yourself by respecting others and respecting yourself. Respect for others is self-respect. And that's the truth. It's the truth that you can find out the easy way or the hard way. I just want you to find out the easy way. Because when I was young, I tried to learn the easy way. When people gave good advice, I took it. But as I got older, as I passed that 20-year-old mark, I got the ego, and then I started listening to my own thoughts. And you know what? I learned that young me was an idiot. And he is full of regret. I don't want you to have that same regret. I want you to lead a good life. Because the good life is the right life. No matter how it seems out there. The good life is the right life. And I'm not religious. Well, I do have my own religion. But I'm not religious in any typical form. I wasn't raised with it. My family was just not against God, just against religion. I've never been for religion. It's not for me. But I personally, like I said, I have my own belief system. I believe my own way. And as I've talked to some friends who are religious, they say, I said something that they're like, oh, that's the truth. Like, your church is wherever you are. Your church, because that's what I believe. It's like everywhere I am in my temple of belief. And that when I pray, I am praying to my gods. I believe in multiple gods. Hawaiians believed in multiple gods, and so do I. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? The Greeks believed in multiple gods, and that's how we got the story of the 300, okay? They believed that they were the descendants of Hercules himself. And you know what? If you're alive right now, you know what that means? Do you know what that means? I heard this from someone else or from a book a long time ago, and I thought, this is the most beautiful, comforting thing for me as a growing young person, as a man who identifies as a man, that, if you're alive today, you are the children, you are the descendants of kings, queens, hunters, gatherers, that the blood that made people who survived, however they had to do it, back in the Neanderthal days, back in the beginning, the primordial beginning of man, the form of us that fought and took down the mammoth. Think about how powerful we are. If you're alive today, you are already made of the stuff of victors and survivors. You are made of the stuff of warriors and heroes. So live like it. Live like you're the child of a prince and a hero, someone of honor and respect. And honor, respect, integrity, these are the things that I believe make a real man. Granted, you do need to get your life together. You do need to get a job and all that stuff. But whether you're gay or you're trans, you're still a human being. And the right way to live your life is with honesty, integrity, with respect for others. And remember, that is self-respect. Okay? All my best relationships with teachers and with friends happened because I never broke that rule. I always was honest. I had integrity, meaning if I believed in something, I stood by it. But also, I respected them. If they had a different culture, they had a different religion, I respected it. Because I believe that that's the American way. That's the true American way. If we are to be this culture, this country that is made up of all the different cultures of the world, then that means we must also respect the other cultures of the world. A true American, by my standing, a true American is someone who respects others because he expects the same respect in return. That is my value system. And like I said, I've had my best experiences, and the people that are in my life the longest share the same values of honesty, integrity, and respect. And that's what I want for you. So if you're young, I'm sure you're tough. I'm sure you can handle yourself in a fight. But if you're young and you meet me, just know you don't got to prove yourself to me. I will treat you with respect if you treat me with respect. And that's just all the things we need to do in our lives, is treat each other with respect. Even homeless people, yes, they may smell, they may look a little scary, but I'm not going to treat them with disrespect if I see them, If they just say hi to me, I'll say hi back. You know what I mean? Don't look down on people, because when you look down at someone else, you're looking down on yourself. Because that could be you someday and you don't even know it. So you just got to think about these things. I just think it's very important. Young people need guidance. It's just the truth. And again, look at all the young people sometimes doing protests for things I don't think they really need to do protests for. You know what I mean? And getting angry on social media, this whole social justice warrior thing. Like, look, it's okay to have values and support those values, but you still got to learn how to be respectful. That, hey, just because you think it's important doesn't automatically mean that anyone who disagrees with you is a bigot or should be disrespected. Because the minute you start disrespecting them, you've already lost your own argument. No one wants to be disrespected. And if you walk around like a little Hitler saying you're right about everything and everyone else is wrong, no one at the end of the day really wants to deal with you. And again, I know from experience that some of my regrets in my life is just being too intense about things that I found out later maybe weren't true, at least about the person I was talking to, and they didn't need to hear that. I didn't need to ruin a good relationship because of a progressive belief. You know what I mean? Like this could have been at the very least a good friendship for years to come, but I just had some crazy progressive belief that I shoved into a conversation that was not needed. You know what I mean? Everyone has their own point of view, and you got to think about that before you start sharing yours. Okay? Nobody has to agree with anybody. Treat people with respect. Because if you want to be respected, that's how you got to treat others. I know some of us don't even have that as an example. But this is just what I'm saying to you now, because this is what I got to say. So now you've heard the move my arm story, and you've heard the little morality behind it. And so, the next time you act a fool, I want you to remember that somebody can indeed move your arm. It ain't gonna be me. I don't even want to be in this situation. But you go messing with somebody trying to prove yourself, saying how your arm can't be moved or you're the best of the best, you will get humbled. But at the same time, if you live to survive it, then you just learned your lesson, all right? So learn the lesson. Try to learn it the easy way if you can. But, be humble from the start. Treat others with respect, be humble, dress nicely. These are the only things you really need to do in life. Other than, of course, you got to get jobs and all that stuff. You get your license, all the basic stuff of life. But the best way to do it is always with respect first. So that's my story for today. I hope you liked it, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Mahalo and aloha. This has been Talk Story with Matthew Salanoa.